And welcome to, well, we're not the protagonists. We're doing a one-on-one today on the world today. Nice to have your company. Hope the weekend was a good one for you. And this is a doozy. I mean, at least we have some sort of freedom here, some sort of, oh, don't know about a justice system, but it resembles one at times. Can't say much about the UK. Our guest today is a 72-year-old grandfather and carer. He is also a prominent Jewish socialist activist, a writer and trade unionist. Tony Greenstein has a track record of opposing racism, fascism, colonialism, and imperialism. He co-founded the Brighton and Hove Committee Against Fascism and Racism. In the 1980s, he was on the Executive of Anti-Fascist Action. He then went on to co-found the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, which is the PSC in the UK, now the largest national Palestinian solidarity organisation of its kind in Europe. Now, recently, Tony found that his bank, I think it's pronounced Santander UK, had frozen numerous accounts of his and that of the Brighton Trust, and that's a registered charity which supports a kindergarten, the Tafawk Children's Centre in Jenin, in Palestine. Now, this is not the first time Tony has been debanked. Tony's opposition to the genocide in Gaza has led to charges against him for inviting support for terrorism under Section 12 of the UK's Terrorism Act. This offence carries a possible sentence of 14 years in prison. He is being prosecuted solely for writing in solidarity with the Palestinian struggle against apartheid, siege and, of course, genocide. This trial commences on August 18. Unfortunately, Tony's case cannot be separated from the wider political movement. More than 2,700 people have been arrested for stating their support for Palestine action under the UK's Terrorism Act. We're going to speak to Tony today about the injustices also occurring in the UK before our very eyes. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Yep. Good morning.
Good morning. I was actually, because you've been a regular with us, and I was quite shocked at the UK wanting to shut the F up of you. You've spent a lifetime opposing injustice, including Palestinian injustice. Can you give us some history of your work and just tell us why we need to be so fearful of you?
Well, I don't think you do need to be fearful of me, but clearly there are sections of the establishment, and in particular the Zionist wing of the establishment, which doesn't like anti-Zionist Jews because they claim to represent all Jews. So there is a problem on that score. And in particular, the Solicitor General, Sarah Sackman, who was vice chair of the Jewish Labour Movement, she's now moved on. She was the one who authorised my prosecution, and we appealed that because she authored in 2016 an article in the Jewish News attacking me. But the Court of Appeal, in its wisdom, decided that despite having had a personal stake in the affair, what she did in consenting to my prosecution was perfectly in order. So that's really the bare bones of it. But yes, I've been involved for a long time in a different range of activities, whether it was squatting in Brighton as a student activist and vice president of my own student union. I supported British troops out of Ireland and the unification of Ireland, and anti-fascism and anti-racism in its various guises. So yes, I've been active politically for most of my adult life.
Good on you. After all, we do live in actually we don't live in a democracy. So you can say what is not going to upset the government, of course. Of course, you're regarded. I mean, I see that you're funding, you're looking after a kindergarten. I mean, truly, that just scares the crap out of me. You must be so evil that you're looking after children. What you need to be doing, I was talking to Jen today about this, it would seem, though, that if you support the killing of children, you're okay. If you don't support the killing of children and you don't support genocide at all, then you're not okay. And it sort of seems arse about, doesn't it?
Well, that's the morality of British imperialism and Zionism. I mean, in Israel in 2021, prescribed as a terrorist organisation, Defence of Children International, the Palestine wing, and it held it was a terrorist organisation, although all it did was defend the interests of children in Palestine. But it alleged that it had connections to the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, or some of its supporters were also involved in the organisation. So, although none of its activities were criticised, it was a kind of guilt by association, McCarthyism, really. And the British government, which allegedly or on paper supports a Palestinian state in the West Bank, in practice supports Israel's military occupation. And the occupation has been, well, it wrecked the Tafawk Centre. It destroyed it in January 2025, having wrecked the interior of it twice before. And it's under severe military harassment now in Jenin city. We are probably the major funder for that centre, not the only one, but the major funder. And at the moment, our funds have been frozen by Santander, which is a Spanish bank operating in Britain. So despite the support of the Spanish people and even the Spanish government for the Palestinians, the Santander Bank is taking a very diametrically opposed view. And I have no doubt it's been constrained by the money laundering legislation and the other regulatory laws which allow the state almost unprecedented powers. And it's a question of legislation creep, really, legal creep. Laws passed for one purpose, to deal with money laundering, financing of terrorist groups and so on, is now being employed for an entirely different purpose, which is to clamp down on Palestine Solidarity, including the funding of a kindergarten. So that's pretty outrageous. And of course the banks can't tell you who's contacted them, what they've said, what the allegations are, or anything else. So it's Kafkaesque, really.
It's it is woeful, but you're not alone, because you have, I think there are 2,700 others that are.
It's over 3,000 now.
Yeah, and that's just it does say a lot about how we should be enjoying democracy. And if you can find a place where we can do that, please give me a hoy, because at the moment it's not happening in your country. The timing of this, it would seem the timing is to ramp up the pressure on you prior to your day or days in court. Would you agree?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, of course it is.
So if it's a Spanish bank, do we have intergovernmental, not control here, but intergovernmental, a partnership of sorts that, and I always thought that the Spanish government would have been a bit different, but obviously they're not. Or is this just because of a regulatory condition of a foreign bank being in the UK that they do as the UK says? If that's
Yes, it is, yes.
So
Yes.
is it the UK then, the UK government, who have decided that we're going to throw you in court? And just reading about what you do and the good that you do, I don't think it'll be a very long trial. I think it'll probably be almost thrown out. What's your views on that one?
Well, I'm not going to speculate at this time as to how it would go, because we have judges in Britain, in particular the infamous Judge Jeremy Johnson in the Filton 25 case, the first 6 of them who've come up, they were charged with criminal damage and various other offences in respect of an Elbit arms factory, an Israeli-owned Elbit factory. And he did his absolute best to secure a conviction, including forbidding lawyers from even mentioning the fact that a jury can reach its decision not simply on the law, as quite reactionary judges interpret it, but on the whole issue, on the basis of their conscience and convictions. And in fact, one of the lawyers was referred for contempt of court to the Court of Appeal. Fortunately, that was thrown out. Rajiv Menon was the barrister for one of the defendants, Charlotte Hedder, I think, and he made a quite brilliant speech. And the result of that and the collective defence effort was that nearly all of the charges were thrown out, in particular aggravated burglary, which carried a life sentence with it, a possible life sentence. So although they secured acquittal on most of the charges, 4 of them were found guilty of criminal damage, and 1 was found guilty of grievous bodily harm to a police officer, although he was acquitted of intent to cause grievous bodily harm. But the intent is, and it's been widely telegraphed, to sentence them under a very obscure provision of another act which amended the Criminal Damage Act as terrorists, even though no terrorism charges were brought. And there's a big petition, over 5,000 people have already signed it, calling for Jeremy Johnson to recuse himself from the trial, because he's clearly and obviously biased. He was, when he was practicing legally, he was MI5 and MI6's favourite barrister. He's security minded. He doesn't view these things impartially. He comes to court with all the baggage, because our judges like to proclaim they're independent of the executive, but in reality our judges are as independent as a dog on a leash. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. And my own judges, from what I've seen of her, Judge Plashka's in Kingston Crown Court, she's really of much the same mind as well. So most judges are pretty reactionary Neanderthals. The judiciary is the most socially exclusive occupation in Britain. Something like 70% have been to Oxbridge and public school. Public school in Britain means private school to anyone else. So that's the system. We have a class system of justice in Britain. And especially now when the term terrorism is used and when the state claims its security is under threat, because our judges go weak at the knees whenever the term security is raised. So we've had these mass demonstrations, defiance of the law which prescribed Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation, although it was a direct action, peaceful protest group, and they've done their best to label it as a terrorist group. The High Court has overturned that, although the judges were replaced at the last minute. They still found themselves unable to uphold the ban, but the Court of Appeal, the government appealed to, its decision is awaited, I think, June the 16th, so we shall know if the ban is upheld or whether the government's appeal it succeeds or not. But I mean, that's the situation in Britain. Terrorism is being used as a weapon against freedom of speech and direct action. It's a blunt weapon. It's what all repressive states resort to. I mean, Nazi Germany termed its opponents terrorists. There's nothing new in this. And the British state has adopted the same terminology. And they define terrorism not in terms that we understand it, which is violence towards civilians, the kind of things that Israel is doing in Gaza, bombing civilians, hospitals and so on, but in terms of damage to property or affecting the interests of the government, putting pressure on the government. So it's Orwellian in a sense. It's a kind of newspeak, I suppose. They define terrorism in a way that no one else defines it.
Just thinking, I mean, if you were to look at this, you know, on the broad base level, it is government overusing their own power. It's bullying, of course. Um, for you to defend it, because government, they can do what they like. You can defend yourself. Um, are they tipping in to help you with your legal fees? Because I would imagine they're going to have the very best. So you need to give yourself a bit of a fair shot at this.
Yes, I'm on legal aid. Yes, so the state provides me with the funding necessary to employ a barrister and a solicitor. Yes.
Can I ask you your opinion of that? Because legal aid in Australia and in other parts of the world doesn't necessarily mean you get the best. And with
No,
that,
you won't. Often you won't get the best, and the best are usually called King's Counsel. So I haven't had the opportunity of employing a King's Counsel, but I do have a barrister,
mhm.
and it will turn really on my own performance on the witness stand under cross examination. I mean, I think that is where the trial will be won or lost, to be quite
Mm.
honest. But we shall see. It will be in little over 2 months' time, and we shall know the verdict, I imagine, by before the end of August.
Mm. And the optics of this very severe, because if you have a conscience and or you live in a democracy and you want to let people know what you think and uh, do good as you are, but although you are a terrorist organisation that you're funding, their kindergarten. I mean, especially when they hit 4, they're very dangerous. They're I mean, just terrible, terrible, terrible children. But
Oh, yes.
but the optics are terrible, aren't they? Because it sends a message to anyone saying that if you go down the path of having a voice, having free speech, and caring about your wider community, and if we don't like that, we're going to use all means to shut you up. I mean, look at the bank. They debanked you. Did the bank let you know at all beforehand, or did you just
No,
pop in
no,
that I better get some money out to do something, and it says you're
no.
not welcome to our bank, senor.
No, they gave me no notice at all. The first time I knew
Mm,
was when the payment processor, Stripe, for the crowdfunder we run for the nursery, told us the bank had rejected their payment. Uh, that was on June the 2nd. That was the first indication that there was something amiss.
mm. What about the funds in there?
They're frozen.
Mm.
There's about in the Brighton Trust accounts there's about £6,000. So they are frozen at the moment. We don't
In,
have access to them.
in the US, they call that kidnap, highly illegal.
Well, it's a form of theft, yes.
Mm,
It's government authorised theft,
mm.
government mandated theft.
But of course,
But
being in a democratic country as you are, you would have gone to the ombudsman, I would imagine.
well, if you went to the Financial Services Ombudsman, you'd be waiting a year,
Mm,
and the Financial Service Ombudsman, in both in the 3 cases where I was debanked, found in favour of the banks. So the Financial Service Ombudsman is really nothing more than a toothless lapdog. In fact, in the case of Nationwide Bank, uh, the Ombudsman's decision was not favourable. So what I did was I went to court to obtain restitution because they closed fixed bonds prematurely. You have a fixed bond, you put your money on the bond for a certain
mm,
period of time, and the interest rate may go up or down. You may win or lose or
mhm,
whatever. But the bank just closed them prematurely. And when I said, "Well, you owe me the rest of the interest," and they refused to pay, the ombudsman supported them. But I issued a claim in the county court, and we reached a legal settlement which was much to my favour. So the bank weren't prepared to fight it in court.
How independent is the ombudsman from government wishes, direction, sentiment?
Well, let's put it like this: they're not instructed by the government, but if they were at all independent, they wouldn't be there in the first place. So they're establishment minded. I mean, I've had previous experience. I mean, when my son was detained under the Mental Health Act, and I made a series of complaints to the Ombudsman, the first investigator reached a decision which was so appalling. She actually, when the hospital itself conceded that they were wrong, she said, "No, no, you are right." I mean, she was again a total lapdog. But I threatened legal proceedings and to go to judicial review, and they appointed a new investigator who upheld our complaint. But these people are not independent in any meaningful sense. They're also very badly trained as investigators, and it's not possible to have a dialogue with them. So they're establishment minded. I mean, they're in organisations which are nominally independent, but in practice, of course, they're not.
Can you tell me, I'm a bit confused here. You've not been accused of terrorism, but inviting support for terrorism. As I mentioned, you donate to a terrorist organisation called a kindergarten. And that
Yes,
itself is
yes.
just horrific. I mean, as I said, 4 years old, they're just terrifying. Ask any parent. However, having said that, could you explain the difference? Inviting support for terrorism.
Well, no, it's actually the charge is inviting support for a prescribed organisation. Prescribed organisations means they are terrorist
Mm.
organisations, and the organisation in question is Hamas. Uh, and I'm accused of inviting support for them. Uh, my argument would be no, I have a number of criticisms of Hamas, and I've expressed them on my blog in numerous articles, but I supported the Palestinian resistance operation on October the 7th. I happen to believe that any people living under occupation have a right to resist. And that's a principle which goes beyond the nature of the organisations which are conducting the resistance. So that's the bone of contention, and that is what will play out in the trial.
But if you had supported Israel in their bombardment and
Oh, no problem at all.
yeah,
No problem at all. You can support genocide today in Britain. No one will prosecute you. And in
mm,
fact, we have a prime minister who, despite his claim to have been a human rights lawyer, is consciously supporting and providing arms to the Israelis in order to conduct the genocide, whilst denying that he support that it is a genocide. I mean, he's like a Holocaust denier. He denies self-evident fact. I mean, people can see the carnage that Israel has caused. There are probably hundreds of thousands of people dead, not 70,000. But regardless of that, 70,000 is a massive number, and he simply denies there's a genocide. And also, we have a law, the International Criminal Court Act
mm.
2001, which specifically renders it illegal to support or give aid to a genocide. But that has become inoperable. The police do not prosecute under it. It is simply disregarded. So we have a situation in Britain where certain laws are implemented and other laws are not. Uh, and that kind of behaviour is really reminiscent of police states, not democratic societies.
I'm just again, I'm a bit confused here, and I'm doing this on purpose, by the way. A bit confused. I think, aren't we the West? It was based on Christianity. Am I right?
Uh,
Sort of, yeah. I mean, well, we got, yeah.
uh, No, I don't think it is based on Christianity, although it's legitimized by
Yeah. Okay.
Christianity. But the Christian churches in Britain have almost unanimously said next to nothing about the genocide in Palestine.
They're
I mean,
terrible.
let's forget. I mean, Christian. I mean, the Americas were conquered with the Bible in one hand and the sword in another. Religion can give justification for virtually anything, just as the Jewish religion today is used to justify what Israel is doing. So religion is, I mean, it can be used in different ways. It reflects the society in which it's based. Religion very rarely stands out. So I mean, the centre in Jenin is supported by the Quakers in Australia, believe it or not, and they've been very, very good. But Quakers in Britain are not so good, and other churches are far worse, especially the established church, the Church of England, which is really, it used to be called the Tory Party at Prayer, but it hasn't changed that much.
I'm just because I'm just looking here. The reason why I mentioned that because we see how they go on. Bible. For God. I mean, and by the way, I'm a Catholic, so I will go to hell. One, I'm talking to a Protestant, probably, and I'll go to hell for this one. But and that's an old thing I used to be told. But so I always assumed that I would go to hell when I was 5 years old. But it says in the Bible, this is the part I get a bit confused with. It's the sixth commandment: "Thou shalt not kill." Okay, so if they used the Bible and used God and Christianity as sort of a basis for the moral compass, I'm a bit confused because if I look at what's happening in Gaza, I see, and I do agree with you. There's probably many hundreds of thousands that have been killed, but you are right, 70,000 is a fair whack. But if you have, if you kill two people, innocent people, the sin is there. So I'm just thinking, where has the West, where has the UK, where has it lost the plot? Because they're not. I mean, I saw some mumblings at the start a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, but really there are no mumblings anymore. Donald Trump and Bibi have wielded the big sword, and they're all jumping to the attention of Trump and Bibi and a few other degenerates. But you are not allowed to kill. Thou shalt not kill. Um,
Ah, but it depends, you see.
that's right. And it's so, has your country, I mean, okay, let's go one step further before you answer that. Okay, it's obvious that Keir Starmer is just full of shit. I don't mean to be rude there. I'm just going to say that, and that the support of Israel is appalling. But having said that, what about your opposition? Do you have Nigel Farage? Is he there saying, Tony, we agree with you. They should not be killing innocent people. You should not be committing genocide, which has been determined. You should not be doing that. I mean, these children. I saw a photo once of and I always get emotional when I think of it. Saw two pics: father holding his son, top half, had a wide shot. There was nothing to the child below the rib cage. That in itself is one of the most graphic, revolting pieces of, I suppose, or an image that has stayed with me. And to me, that determines where the West is. We put up with it. We have governments with
Well,
it.
I'm afraid that Western imperialism can commit any amount of savagery and soothe its conscience by saying that it's in a noble cause. I mean, the difference between Biden and Trump, if you like, is that Trump has no narrative, has no justification. For him, might is right.
Mm.
And that is really the difference. So he quite openly will go invade Venezuela, kidnap its president, and openly say that Venezuela's oil is the United States' oil. So thou shalt not steal doesn't seem to have affected him very much. But I mean, the Catholic Church had the concept of a just war, although I believe the Pope is now thinking of changing that. In the Jewish religion, thou shalt not kill was interpreted, and is certainly interpreted today by rabbis in Israel and outside, as meaning thou shalt not kill Jewish people. There are different penalties. It's not a capital offence to kill a non-Jew. And if you then define the Palestinians, as Netanyahu and the majority of the Israeli population do, as Amalek, the tribe that attacked the children of Israel in the Sinai desert, and who God instructed the children of Israel to wipe out, yea, to every infant, child, ox, cattle, and so on. If you define them as Amalek, the kind of historic enemy of the Jewish people, then you're allowed to do absolutely anything. So Netanyahu and others in Israel have openly defended and supported genocide, and yet the miserable creature that is Keir Starmer, he is the most hated Prime Minister Britain has had. He's a man without any moral compass, he's without any personality, charisma, he's a walking agent of the state in a sense. He's the personification of a state, the kind of big brother that George Orwell envisaged in 1984. For him, anything goes and anything is acceptable. His only point of reference is October the 7th, when the Palestinians broke out of Gaza. There is nothing else. He openly said in an interview with an LBC radio station that Israel had the right to starve, deprive them of food, water, anything else. He said Israel has that right, although he later, being a liar, congenital liar, then denied he'd said it. He said he was answering the question before, which was anyone could see was a lie. But he's also a liar, and he came to power, as Paul Holden has said in the book Fraud, through fraud and deception. He had a radical manifesto to win the Labour leadership election and promptly ditched it. He talked about human rights, but that was the last time he talked of human rights. So Starmer is a particularly iniquitous creature, and it's not much wonder that the Labour Party has tanked in the elections. I mean, it did so badly in the last local elections because it stands for nothing. It's a kind of reform light, but as for reform itself, it's pro-Zionist. I mean, it can be anti-Semitic and pro-Zionist at the same time. The two are quite compatible. In fact, historically, if you were an anti-Semite and didn't like Jews, then you would also be supportive of Zionism, because the best way to get rid of the Jews in your midst is to send them to Palestine and conquer someone else's territory. So
Isn't it interesting? I mean, I'm just talking about you and your country at the moment, but you could also, compare to Australia, which is going down that path quicker than you could say Jack Robinson. But okay. So, are there any political parties or figures or leaders in your country that don't support genocide?
Well, there are certainly members of Parliament, Zara Sultana, Jeremy Corbyn, Plaid Cymru, the Green MPs. I mean, I'm a member of the Green Party, although I'm suspended at the moment, which is another story. But yes, I mean, there are political figures. There are some Labour MPs who also don't support the genocide, but most Labour MPs don't have a backbone. And as you can't get a spine transplant on the NHS, I'm afraid we're left with them as they are. So, yes, the majority of MPs couldn't care less, to be quite honest. They have no moral compass or direction, and they obey the whip in Parliament. So there's been very little opposition to Starmer's policies on Israel, which is to support, as I say, the genocide.
And it's if you were to, because I often criticise the Netanyahu government, the war machine. I think they're a terrible government. As soon as the world gets rid of them, the better off we are. But it doesn't mean I'm anti-Semitic. It doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. It means that we just think that there is a dreadful regime in power at the moment that is supported by a dreadful regime in the US. But it doesn't
Well,
mean we hate Americans or the Jewish people.
yes, I mean, of course, being opposed to genocide is not the same as being opposed to Jewish people,
Mm.
but Israel is what it is, not because of a particular regime. It's because Zionism aimed from the very start to settle and colonize the land and to dispossess the indigenous people. So whoever replaces Netanyahu, if he goes in the forthcoming elections, will not be any better. The opposition is no different to Netanyahu on all the major questions, I'm afraid.
What about the okay? We've talked about your the political um, gonads in the UK. They're not very big at this stage. Must be a cold day, which it probably is. But what about the media? Okay, and we're not just talking about legacy here. We're going to talk about independent media. And the reason why I say that, the other day, an old TNT member was on and was saying that the world needs to wake up to itself and support Donald Trump and support Israel because they're cleansing basically the world of Satan with what they're doing in the Middle East. And I thought, wow. I mean, and so we have this great, because obviously they've shared this Kool-Aid around. It's got this substance in it, maybe a few magic mushrooms thrown in for good measure. But the media itself, have you found, except for the odd outpost, have you found anyone with the gonads to support you?
Well, the BBC could be nicknamed the voice of Israel.
Mm.
Its its coverage of the genocide has been framed by Rafi Berg, who is a director of news output. He's the gatekeeper. But the consensus in the BBC is you don't talk about genocide. You always reflect the Israeli narrative. You talk about Israelis being murdered, but Palestinians die from some unnatural cause, possibly. It, Everything is framed according to the Zionist understanding, and the reason for that is quite simple: that Zionism is the adopted policy of the British foreign policy establishment, and so it views everything through a Western imperialist perspective. And Israel is our friend. We have a military alliance with Israel, and so Britain supplies weapons. I mean, Germany, not satisfied with all the Holocaust and genocides it's committed, is helping Israel to perpetrate another genocide. But maybe that's not unexpected. But I think that one of the key points is that throughout Western Europe, and indeed in America, public opinion has swung decisively in favour of the Palestinians and against the Israeli state. But the elites in our society cling to the coattails of Zionism. So it exposes, in a way, the lack of democracy in the West, that the government can do one thing and the parties support it, the leaderships from Reform, Conservative, Labour, and yet most people do not support what's happening in Gaza, because despite the attempts at censorship, and the BBC produced a film and then, in fact, it commissioned two films which were sympathetic to the Palestinians during the Gaza genocide, the Zionists howled and it withdrew them. But despite all of that, despite Israel killing 300 journalists and media workers in Gaza and forbidding journalists to go in, people can still see, because of the bravery of Palestinian journalists who got their news reporting out to independent outlets and Al Jazeera and so on, people can still see for themselves what's happening, not least because Israeli soldiers boast about their exploits. They actually think it's amusing to shoot at children. I mean, they're so sick that they think these things are funny. But most people don't find killing children funny. But Israel has a completely warped sense and understanding, because if you're a Zionist, you want a Jewish state and you want it to be as Jewish as possible. And so the Arabs are a hindrance, they're a guest, they're an unwanted abscess almost on society. And so getting rid of Palestinians is really what the Nazis did to the Jews.
Mm.
This mentality is the same.
Isn't it
And
funny?
yeah, I mean that's reality. I mean, Israel doesn't use gas chambers; it uses explosives. I mean, as a point of interest historically, when the Nazis realised that killing Jews by shooting them and getting them to dig their own pits was causing mental problems amongst the SS, they experimented with other ways of killing,
Mm.
including explosives, but it was not efficient. Possibly, if they'd had the £2,000 bombs that Trump and Biden supplied, they might have changed their minds.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, it's like an abused child. The abused child many times becomes an abused parent. It's just
I'm not convinced of that because during the war, the Zionists, although today they mention the Holocaust at every
mm,
opportunity,
mm,
during the war they played it down to the point of non-existence, and even at one period denied there was a systematic extermination taking place. The Zionists were concentrated on one thing in the war, which was building a Jewish state after the war. Everything else was secondary. Saving refugees, for example, was very low on their priority list. Indeed, they opposed the emigration of Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany to anywhere but Palestine. Ben Gurion is on record as saying that given the choice of saving all Jewish children from Germany and Britain, or only half of them in Palestine, he'd prefer the latter course because it's a question of the Jewish people and its history and not simply the children themselves. So Zionism, well, I mean, it was the only section of the Jewish population that collaborated with the Nazis.
mm,
So that's not something that's widely known. I've written a book on Zionism during the Holocaust,
mm,
which goes into some detail.
mm,
Many Zionists actually welcomed the rise of Hitler because they saw it as their golden opportunity to prosper, whereas in peacetime they couldn't.
mm,
So that's the record. So I don't accept the abused child because the Zionists were not abused.
mm. Tell me, in your opinion, will we ever have peace in the Middle East?
You won't have peace as long as the Israeli state is still standing.
So we're
The
not.
Israeli state has got to go. I mean, the the Zionist idea is a racist and a racial creed, which basically says that Jews in Israel are supreme, that they hold the whip hand, and they have a right to dominate the region, which is what the Iran war is about. It's about Israeli supremacy over the region because Iran was seen to stand in their way. Therefore, it became an enemy. It's nothing to do with nuclear weapons.
Mm,
It is about regional domination. And because Iran didn't simply lie down and bow, if you like, before them, it was attacked. No other reason. But if Iran were defeated, then we have it on the authority of what is possibly the next Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, that Turkey will be next in line. At the moment, Israel is engaged in its military is in Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and is attacking Iran. So, I mean, it's now engaging in almost permanent war. And this fits with the Zionist goal of a greater Israel, because Zionism traditionally talked about the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, not about a state of Israel, which is why Israel is the only country in the world which hasn't defined its borders, because it hopes to expand them further. And there's plenty of territory to conquer yet, up to the Litani in Lebanon, east to the Euphrates in Iraq, down to in the south to the Nile. So, I mean, it's got quite a way to go.
mm. Tell me about Palestine Action.
Well, Palestine Action was formed in 2020 by Huda Amori and Richard Barnard, two Palestine Solidarity activists. And it was, I suppose, fed up with simply protesting and handing out leaflets, but actually not doing very much. And so they initiated a campaign of direct action against Israeli arms factories, including smashing them up and causing what some people would call criminal damage. Uh, and it was remarkably successful. It's closed at least 3 premises, including the factory at Oldham, and it's mobilised community to come out and support the protesters who are on the roofs of these places. But of course, Elbit has close relations, contracts with the British government, and they put pressure on the state to start to clamp down. Uh, and that is really what has happened. A lot of people in Palestine Action have been acquitted by juries, even though they're technically guilty, and despite the best efforts of the judges and the judiciary. And that is where it's at, really. There have been a series of judgments by the Court of Appeal withdrawing defences such as justification, because one of the defences was, yes, I'm committing a crime, but it's a lesser crime to prevent a greater crime. Just as you can break down a door, which would normally be criminal damage, if someone's inside the house burning alive. So you can destroy weapons in order to prevent the destruction of civilians. But the judges have ruled on various pretexts, such as remoteness, which is a concept in law, that you cannot use that defence. So that's the situation as we are. Palestine Action has been remarkably successful, and I have to say, I think the banning of it by Yvette Cooper, the nauseous Home Secretary, who's now Foreign Secretary, was probably a political mistake, because what it did was galvanise support for Palestine Action amongst people who didn't necessarily support it, but supported their right to take direct action, and it was seen as the front to the very nature of democracy itself. So we've had quite a summer of protest last year, with the police arresting blind people, old age pensioners, people who can barely walk, the disabled, and so on. Because mainly elderly people who have nothing to lose by a criminal conviction, who were prepared to hold up the signs saying, we support Palestine Action, we oppose genocide in Palestine. So that was what forced the High Court into saying that the ban was unlawful. Whether the Court of Appeal uphold that, we shall see. But they're all political decisions by our court.
They are.
Legal icing.
So if it remains a criminal offence to be a member then of Palestine Action, express support for it, display its symbols, it can carry penalties up to, I think it's 14 years in prison. The question is, okay, will they need to disband? But do you think that would happen? As you said, it may galvanise the whole thing. But at the moment, to show any sort of support for Palestine Action, you can find yourself in a fair amount of hot water. Do you think it'll become then an underground sort of a group to be part of? Or is it just saying that the UK government says, you will not have any free thought or speech? And the natural reaction from the people is to say, bugger off, we can do what we like with our mind, and we can do what we like with our mouths, we can do what we like with our hearts.
Well, it's a symbolic thing, because people are still taking action against arms factories. They just don't do it in the name of Palestine Action. So the action attacking Elbit factories, for instance, is still prosecutable under non-terrorist legislation. It's simply that if you call yourself Palestine Action, then you'll be prosecuted under the Terrorism Act. Actually, simply saying you support Palestine Action and holding up a sign to that effect carries a 6-month sentence, not 14 years. The provisions under which I'm prosecuted are different, and they carry a maximum of 14 years. So that's the lie of the land. But I mean, I think that the government took one step too far. Ironically, Yvette Cooper, as Home Secretary, when she was introducing the ban on Palestine Action, had appeared in the House of Commons chamber earlier that day in the colours of purple, which were the colours of the suffragettes. Now, the suffragettes engaged in a bombing and arson campaign that puts Palestine Action to shame.
Mm.
They attempted to burn down Lloyd George's house. He was the Prime Minister. They attacked cabinet ministers. They burned down racecourse grandstands. They poured acid in post boxes and injured a number of people. And I think they actually killed 4 people. So Yvette Cooper was happy to identify with the suffragettes a century later. And so the people who were classified as terrorists at the time have historically become heroes. And
Mm.
that's often the case. The terrorist of yesterday is the hero of today. So I don't see any difference with Palestine Action. And these narrow minded judges will disappear into a footnote of history at best.
Mm. Looking at what's happening to you in August, and looking at what's happened to others, looking at what's happening to the UK, what should ordinary people know about UK justice? Or is that just a figment of their imagination?
What we call the judge in the Filton trials Injustice Jeremy Johnson, because that's what he is. He
Mm.
stands for injustice, not justice. Uh, and in the UK, the Starmer government has made a concerted attempt to hand more powers to the police to clamp down on demonstrations and the right to protest. So we have a very anti-democratic government in power, and they're a continuation of the Conservative government before them. There's, despite promising change, Keir Starmer has in fact effected no change whatsoever, and that's the lie of the land in Britain today. But I don't think it's just Britain. Throughout Europe, there's been an attack on democratic rights. I went to Germany at the beginning of April, I think it was, uh, and I spoke at a demonstration outside Stanheim Prison or courthouse, where the Ulm Five, very similar to Palestine Action, are on trial. And in my speech, I said, or I finished with, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And almost immediately after, the German police detained me because apparently that's illegal in Germany. So it's not just in Britain, it's Europe wide, this attack on democratic rights. And that says something about the society we live in as capitalism goes into ever increasing crisis. So any sign of opposition is fiercely clamped down on. When
Mm.
I spoke in Stuttgart, the police in Berlin are horrific in terms of the violence they use against Palestinian supporters. Uh, that's today, but I mean, as I'm happy, we'll be happy to point out if they ever do charge me in Germany, that the German state's support for Israel is really no different from the support the Nazis gave to the Zionists, who were the favourite Jews of the Nazi party and government at the time. Uh,
Yeah. Also in Queensland, we have the same law. And in fact, day one of it, a couple of people wore the T-shirt from the river to the sea, and not too sure if they've been released yet, but they were again violent people. I mean, one was an 18-year-old girl, but her woman
sure, yeah.
mouth. She's terrible. She's terrifying, and her boyfriend. I mean, he had whiskers, so he obviously was testosterone fueled. But it does say a lot about where we're heading. It doesn't show that they're relenting at all, does it?
No, I mean, society has become more repressive, and our politicians, whatever colour they fly in,
Mm.
really adopt the same policies. And if reform were to come to power, we can see an increase in the level of repression. I actually don't think they will,
Mm.
but although they're leading in the polls at the moment. But yes, there's a, if you like, say, as society becomes more repressive, as our rulers become more desperate, and that's why we're seeing wars across the Middle East now.
Mm.
It's almost permanently in conflict, and Israel is the attack dog of the United States. So whatever disagreements between Netanyahu and Trump, at the end of the day, they're on the same side.
Yeah, I totally agree. But to say not to trust Mossad is just terrible. I can't do that without laughing. What a creepy organisation that is. And that's another conversation. Tony, if somebody wants to find out about your books or find out about you, give you support for your upcoming case in, I think, August 18, how do they do that?
Well, you can go to my blog, TonyGreenstein.com, or there's one also on Blogspot. You can just Google my name and my blog will come up. You can contact me if you want a book at TonyGreenstein104@gmail.com. And there's a crowdfunder, which again I'm using to raise for legal expenses because I intend to sue the pants off the bastards if I'm acquitted.
Good on you. And I can't believe you're 72. I mean, you look like a young version of Donny Osmond.
My wife says it's because I never had a proper job, so I don't want to dissent from that.
I think all wives say that, so don't feel privileged by any stretch. Tony Greenstein, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And nice to have you back again, too. You are a part of
Yes,
our pop
indeed.
in every now and then. Give us your pearls of wisdom, and always appreciate it. We'll be following this, and I think the UK and I think the world needs to follow it because it's if you love your country and you love what it used to stand for, we do
Yeah.
need to do a lot more than just nod your head and go, oh, well, glad it's not me, because one day it could very well be you. Tony, thank
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you have to stand your ground, even if you have to pay a personal cost. I mean, I think that is important. And the older I get, the more determined I am. So, thank you very much for this interview, and I hope everything goes well.
Well, we're still alive, we're still breathing. One day I'm going to get you on with Dr. Frank Romano, who is always on the
All right. Yes. Yes.
and
Okay.
I mean, I said to him the other day, I said, Frank, you're gathering frequent flyer points for Israeli prisons, and he sort of laughed, but it is true. But
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
he's also fighting the good fight, and I think we need to do that because the
Absolutely.
atrocities. I mean, if you doubt what we're saying, go and find a pic online. It could be greyed out or whatever, but try and find that pic, and you'll see the atrocities. Innocent children, men, women, they do not deserve what's happening at the moment. And as soon as we stop fighting, you should just roll over and die. That's my own opinion.
I
Tony,
agree.
thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is the world today. And the protagonists will be back again, I think, tomorrow or the next day. Until then, though, have a great one. Thank you to Tony Greenstein. A brilliant conversation. And I think it's just an atrocity, not only what's happening to him, but what's happening in the Middle East. And we do need to also grow some gonads, and start fighting the good fight, because a couple of 100,000 have been just murdered. And now look what's happening. And it is not anti-Semitic to absolutely feel disgust with the Israeli government, and they are disgusting at the very best. Again, catch you tomorrow. This has been The World Today.
With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.